Good morning. It's Fred in Alaska. I want to start by sending my heartfelt condolences to the Arnold family. Kerry was an inspiration to a whole lot of us. I was inspired by him to go to the on-site locations like he did in his documentaries preceding the podcast. Great guy. Heart goes out to his family. Utmost respect for him. It's a shame, which is a stark reminder. Love your people. Love those who love you. Don't let those small things get between you and get the better of you, because tomorrow's not promised. And all right, that being said, I want to share with you something. We'll say her name is Kathy. Back in the 90s, Kathy lived down on the Kenai Peninsula, and where she lived, she had a neighbor, a woman with quasi homesteading, her own critters and whatnot. Had a mess of kids, and that particular lady's husband worked up on the North Slope, so he was gone a lot. One morning, Kathy got her kids off to school, and shortly after the kids left, there was a knock at the door, and she thought that's weird, so she goes and answers it, and it's her neighbor. Someone she had waved to periodically that would wave back, didn't know her, never actually met. And the lady commences to telling her she needs her help. So Kathy's inquisitive, like, what am I helping you with? She doesn't want to walk into something blindly, like no one would. But lady says she can't explain it. No one would believe her, basically, and she needs some help. So Kathy goes with her to go check out what's going on. When they get over there, the first thing she comes across is 8 or 9 rabbits from this lady's homesteading, growing her own meat, basically. And they're all missing their heads, and they're lined up. No blood, no nothing, heads missing. The bodies are still limp. The rain had just stopped not too long before that. And Kathy immediately starts asking, well, what happened? And she said, well, it stopped, a couple hours ago. It went on for 45 minutes, and she kept asking, well, what was it? It basically boiled down to it was a monster. So the lady commences to showing her the rabbit pen that was messed up, the chicken coop that was messed up, but there's no sign of any struggle, no sign of anything. The rabbit cage was welded up in a fashion with angle iron, and the tops of it was bent. Nothing that a bear could do, because Kathy's a smart lady. She's trying to figure it out, what's caused this, looking for other explanations. So the lady goes through telling her what was going on. Said it showed up, was screaming, and Kathy notices the lady had about 16 cords of wood where she has it stacked for the wintertime. Well, a large portion of it was missing. And so, as part of Kathy looking into it to investigate, she notices that the wood's missing and notices it's kind of scattered around. So she starts going out and seeing how far these things were thrown, and some of them were thrown very, very far in chunks of birch trees that these things were hitting. It was taking chunks out of it and knocking the bark off of the trees. And she immediately recognized, oh, I'm not seeing any tracks, and I don't want to be out here wherever this thing was throwing things. So she backtracks and was talking to the lady, and as the lady's explaining to her what had been going on, the lady had all her kids hiding upstairs in her house. And one of the things that really stood out to Kathy was, one, no blood. The rabbit carcasses were still limp, no rigor mortis yet, and there was absolutely no blood. It was like they were in pristine condition minus a head, which was very odd, and lined up with each other. All the chickens the lady had were gone. Every single one of them gone. Not a bunch of feathers strewn around like a bear would if it got in there. It would have been painfully evident if it was a bear. Anyone who's been up here in Alaska and dealt with bear, they tear it up. They don't care about leaving no trace. It's just not even on in their mindset. So she's going through trying to break it down. What is this? Because at this point, Sasquatch, hairy man, none of that even, was even on her plate. So as the lady's explaining what was going on, she notices by this barn they had, this well, in essence a barn, there's a 2x12 board that had been spiral shank nailed into the supports beneath it, and this thing had been pulled and drug non-stop, because if you're pulling a board through dirt and you stutter it, you'll see the choppy lines in the dirt. This thing was smooth action, just pulled right on out to where the dirt was coming over it, and you could see the bent spiral shank nails that they used to anchor it down, which takes a whole lot of force. You could do it with a truck for sure, but Kathy, being a, you know, the way she was raised, she investigated, she looked for tires, all that kind of stuff. She went through it in her mind, and she said, well, why didn't you get a hold of your husband to help you? Why isn't your husband helping you? And she said she couldn't get a hold of him. And she said, why didn't you call the cops? And she said, the cops aren't gonna believe me anyway. So in essence, what happened is, for 45 minutes, this hairy man came out, decimated the rabbits, took the chickens. She only reported seeing one. The screams startled and scared them to death. And the thing that stood out the most was the distance these logs and stuff, chunks, busted up firewood, was thrown 100 yards easily, and taking chunks out of a tree at the same time. Because she said when she was back there and she'd find a piece of firewood, there was chunks of the tree missing and the bark, you know, laying about and whatnot. There's so many of these types of things, you know, that are kept inside. A lot of people that share with me haven't shared anything of what they experienced in 30 years, 20 years, or better, you know, for some of them. And you know, there's even reports of people taking their own lives because of not being believed, and to me that's really sad. You know, anyone out there, even if you don't want your story shared, even if you don't want, you know, any recognition, you don't want a little marker pin on a map, you know, for whatever, irrelevant. If you need to get something off your chest, hit me up. It can remain anonymous. No one can ever hear about it. No one will even breathe a word of it. But don't hold it in. Don't end up like people that end up doing the worst to themselves because no one wants to believe them or call them a kook. Because to me, it's sickening to think that very intelligent people, professional backgrounds. I was, you know, recently amongst a group of professionals that won't ever speak of these things in a public manner for fear of ridicule and losing their job. And to me, that's sad. In my opinion, and I'm sure others will disagree, but in my opinion, there's enough evidence out there as we sit right now. You got Patterson Gimlin, you got I mean, the list is almost endless, you know, with different forms of evidence, types of evidence, physical, video, audio, all these things. To be dismissed and ridiculed, to me, is sickening. And that's another thing why I appreciated and respected Kerry Arnold, is because he dealt with the topic with dignity. There wasn't ever any mockery, you know, going on whatsoever. There was none of that, no ulterior motives, just getting the word out, and I respect that. That's something I myself strive to do, is basically the same thing. He was an inspiration to go to the locations where these things happen. Now, here in Alaska, it's a little harder for me because the distances, man, are crazy. So logistically, it's a little different, but you know, it's really sad. He was a huge inspiration. Like, when I first started looking into the topic mainstream and not just my own personal things and things I've heard from family and whatnot, I watched all of his documentaries. You know, he would go to the Indian reservation, he would go down to Florida, he went to these places to investigate, take a look, and listen to the people themselves. Fortunate for him, people were willing to speak out and speak up. It's a little harder up here in Alaska. People are a little more reserved, They sure as hell don't want their business in the street, so to speak, and they're in Alaska to get away from all that, basically. A lot of them. Some aren't, but the majority keep to themselves, take care of their own, hardworking individuals. But definitely a huge inspiration through and through. I mean, you know, he would do his podcast remote if he had to from work, you know, just to make sure he was tending to his family. And to me, I mean, that's the epitome of honor, love, and respect. You know, it just, he never stopped looking out for his, and looking out for others too that were out to share their experience. And my hat's off to the guy. And again, my sincerest condolences to the family. There's a lot of people out there that I know for a fact, I hear from them all the time, and not even from Alaska, just all over the US, even in Canada, that deal with this type of thing, like this poor lady getting her livestock decimated. You know, Kathy's saying, I can't, what could Kathy do? You know, she wasn't even a believer at the time, but evidence like that, you know, it gradually changed her mind till she had an episode happen. But you know, I think it's really important that people have a place to go, a safe place to share, even if it doesn't go public, it's not made into a story on the internet, you know, because I'm not naive. I know a lot of people watch this thinking, oh, what's the good story? They want a good story, you know. Well, it may be a story to some, but to others, they lived that. That's not a story to them. That is a chapter in their life that they're going through, and a lot of people still struggle with. I still, like, I'm in my friggin' yard, and I don't take it for granted. I mean, you guys have seen my videos. Periodically, I'll stop, I'll look around. I got moose, bear, all sorts of things come through. And anyway, I don't want to ramble on. Point is, love your people. You're not promised tomorrow. Don't let that petty shit get in the way. Don't ever leave a word unspoken with your loved ones. Never. It's not. Life is too short to do that. Don't take it for granted. And for those of you out there suffering in silence, self-medicating with alcohol, drugs, whatever, get it off your chest. Even if it's just, you just need someone to hear it, I'll listen to it. Even if it's, I don't share it like I am here and on this format, whatever, get it off your chest. Don't hold that crap in. Don't become a statistic of self-harm and things of that nature. It's not worth it, because you know, when things like that happen, those around those people are left holding the bag over something they don't understand, and that to me seems very unfair. There's more to Kathy's story. I have some other stuff going on. I'll share more of that journey she went on in discovering in the near future here. Check out the website, subarcticalaskasasquatch.com. You can find contact information for me there, or nocomp907@gmail.com, alaskaharrymanproject@gmail.com. And stay tuned. There's some remote adventures coming real soon, and we'll catch you on the next one.